Welcome to a Sunny Side Up Life podcast, a show for the woman who is ready to live an abundant life full of freedom and positivity. I'm Sammy Womack, and I'm on a mission to help you break free from survival mode, gain financial freedom, stay motivated, and focus on what matters most. Join the movement and let's start living on the brighter side of life together. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode. I have another amazing guest for you guys, and she is someone that has been on my list for a really long time and is a huge role model of mine in the debt-free community. And you guys, I've been telling you guys that this episode is coming because there's some episodes that I am too excited to keep to myself. So go ahead, introduce yourself. Everyone knows who you are, but tell us a little bit more about your story and yourself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Shang. On Instagram, I'm known as Save My Cents. And I think most people would find me because I've been blogging about financial independence, retire early, the FIRE movement. And I reached that at the age of 31. And in that process of reducing my expenses and reaching FIRE, I realized how important psychology and mindset are in any personal finance journey. And so I decided to start Save My Cents as a passion project. This is not something that is really my full-time job right now, but the goal is for me to help as many Americans as possible get out of debt towards financial freedom. And my eventual goal with my own money is to be able to give all my excess wealth away to others to help them change lives, probably in the form of scholarships, but I haven't quite made up my mind yet on how that's going to look.
That was going to be one of my questions is, I know you are so big on giving and everything, and I love the idea of scholarships. That's kind of a gift within a gift.
It is, because student loan debt, it's one of the hardest debts to carry because you get it when you're really young, when your career is the most vulnerable. And I've seen it set people financially back by, anywhere from 5 to 7 years on average, compared to someone without student loan debt. And, giving is near and dear to my heart right now, but it wasn't always this way. I was definitely a lot more selfish with my money. Even 5 to 7 years ago, I probably didn't give as much as I did today because I was afraid that by giving, I would be losing.
Yes.
And it wasn't until my husband, who I call Mr. Save My Cents online to protect his identity, he said, Shang, if you give, more will come to you, not necessarily in money, but it will come back in some kind of blessing. And I also realized I was just in an unhappy place in my own life. And I began giving more regularly, grudgingly, because my husband told me we had to tithe and all of that. However, I think over the years, I realized, actually, you know what? Abundance did come. I couldn't tell you how exactly it happened, but today I would happily wake up every day and log onto Instagram or whatever the future of Instagram will look like and help other people achieve financial freedom, because it is so worth it and so satisfying to impact other people's lives for good.
Yeah, exactly. And, I get asked a lot how I can share our journey. And, there are so many people who do go under a different name online or different things like that, or they don't tell certain aspects of their life, or they don't show their face, or which I respect everyone's choice, of course. But when I first started, I just wanted to share. I just wanted to help. I didn't know that maybe I should hide my face, or maybe I should make up a fake name. I was just going at it so just genuinely. And, it's just been so rewarding. And you just you never know whose life you're going to affect. And it's just crazy. But I love that we have this place online. And it is one of the beautiful things about the internet. The internet can be such a dark place, but it's you find the good parts. And I think the debt-free community is one of the good parts of the internet. And I'm just so thankful that I found it and I'm a part of it. And it's just awesome. And just getting to connect with other people and just bounce that energy off of each other is just, it's wonderful. It's wonderful.
Yeah. Thank you to Amanda, debt-free in sunny California.
Yes.
Thank you for getting all of this started.
Yes. And just everyone who just posts day after day after day and just keeps it going. It's awesome. But one of the things I can't honestly even remember, I was trying to remember today when I was getting my notes ready for our conversation, when I started following you. I honestly don't know. Like, I just, hey, there you are. And it's how you it's just one day they post something and it catches your attention and you're like, yes, this person gets part of me. And it's awesome. And one of the things that I love about what you post and who you are is in your bio, you say dropping truth bombs. And that is just you. Like, you're just like, you look like so sweet and polite and just like, but you're just like, this is the truth, you guys, and you're just unapologetic about it, and I just love that. And I love how just authentic you are and positive, but not in a way that seems polished or fake, And the internet can be really bad about that. But you're just like, but you're so positive while showing the struggles. And how do you maintain that balance? Do you know how you do it, or is it just second nature?
Perhaps I grew up as a child who was too honest for my own good. And maybe when I was younger and a lot less mature, I have been told that sometimes maybe I was too blunt in the things that I said. And I think it comes rooted in some kind of, I don't know if it's a radar or something, where I just did not like fake people. And partially it was because I was bullied when I was younger in both middle school and high school by people who had something to hide. And they were hiding their vulnerabilities by taking it out on me. So that created a very extreme sensitivity in me to people who are not genuine. But it's not like I hate my bullies or I hate people who are not genuine today. It's just that that's not the energy that I want to surround myself with. So I probably project this sort of like, hey, truth bomb, this is what you got to know. I'm just out there telling you the truth, or my version of the truth. There's many versions of truth out there, and hoping that it resonates with people.
Yeah. And I love it. And it's addictive. And it's been one of my goals actually for 2019 was to be unapologetic. And it just kept coming up as I was kind of journaling through my goals at the end of last year. It just be unapologetic. And as we grow into our journey, we're starting to save more and more. And it's like, I had Ellie Mondelli on a few episodes ago, and she was kind of saying the same thing. It's just like, people are cheering you on when you're getting out of debt. But as soon as you start saving, a lot of people fall off. And people aren't cheering for you as much. There are still people who are cheering for you, because I think there will always be good and positive. But I feel like you alienate a lot of people when you start to keep the money, when you start to save it. And I don't know. And we're starting to kind of go into that. And it's really hard to say, okay, we are actually saving 55% of our income, sometimes more like 45, but somewhere in there, we save about half our income. And people start to get a little nervous, and they start to say, well, if I had that much money, and then you want to kind of shrink back, and you want to say, well, I don't want to discourage anyone. I don't want them to feel like their savings isn't good enough. And it's really hard to kind of not apologize for that. What is your take on all of that? And what do you say about not apologizing for your success?
Yeah. I mean, we live in a society where the first question that comes to anyone's mind is, how do I compare against someone else? In New York, we always joke that the very first question that you ask anyone that you meet is, what do you do? It's a loaded question because it immediately places all the value of the person that you are meeting in their life's work, when that might not necessarily be the case. recognizing that this is the construct, this is the way that our society was designed, made me realize, but is that how I want to live my life? No, that's not really a value of mine. So I came to ignore that chatter. As to my own savings rate, my savings rate right now with both of us working is 50% of our pre-tax income, which translates to, I don't know, maybe 70% post-tax. It is very high. I don't share our actual numbers because I recognize there's sensitivity in this country around privilege, which blew up the other day on Instagram as well. And I did not want to be part of that conversation. But recognizing where I am, I think the message that I want people to take away from what I do is it's not that I want you to replicate my journey, because that's kind of pointless. I don't want people to copy me because your lives are very individual. However, it is that you got to figure out your own joy. At the end of the day, we're all going to die. And I would like for all of us to reflect on our lives and say, did I pursue and recognize the joy that I could achieve in this life? And for many people on their deathbed, it's not the job that they had, it's not the accolades, it's not the money they made, but is their time well spent? And so for me, my saving and my investing, it translates to freedom. And freedom is going to look different for everybody. So yes, I don't share my numbers because I think it can discourage people, but I absolutely want to talk about the mindset because I think that is something that I had to learn myself. And if I can learn it, anyone can learn it, because I was the most negative kid growing up. I was not the person that you are meeting today, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Which, I mean, I think that's all of us. Like, we've all grown, and you kind of grow into this journey. And I tell people at the beginning of their journey all the time, you're not going to flip a light switch and be a person who's saving half their income. That just doesn't happen overnight. But I like how you talk about the behavior and the mindset and all of that as well. And for me, it's been a lot of working through, my own mental health and my own contentment and all of that kind of stuff. And how has that played into your journey as well?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I was very touched recently. There are these filmmakers that I know from Harvard who later on made a documentary about a Harvard college student who died by suicide called Looking for Luke. And they would screen this documentary around the country at hospitals. And when I went to one of the screenings, the doctor who was on the panel said, you should treat your mental health as you would treat your physical health. If it's sick, you go and get medicine. You go have a doctor take a look at it. You don't try to resolve it yourself. So mental health is so important.
Yeah, I agree with the treating the mental health as the same. And that actually, I have shared a lot about myself going to counseling. My anxiety got to the point where it was physically hurting my body. And I'm still suffering from a lot of shoulder and neck pain just from the tension, and to the point where I was struggling to care for my children. And I finally got to the point where I went to the doctor. I waited and finally went to a counselor. And one of the things I told her during the very first meeting with her was, I am not showing up in my life, this life that on paper is the life I've always wanted. Like, I'm debt free now. I have my husband. I have my children. I have my own goals with my blog and everything else that I'm doing. Like, I have all the things on paper that I should want. Why do I feel broken? And I'm just like, I can't show up for the people around me the way that I want to. And the thing that she told me that I share all the time, and one of the things I told her at the very beginning was, my goal when I get out of here is to be able to share with other women and hold my head high and not be ashamed of the fact that I'm here. But that day is not today, so I have to get better first. And she told me, she said, if you were a diabetic, would you feel shame for using insulin? And I said, well, no. And she said, well, if you have a mental health issue, you should not feel shame for seeking help, whether that is medication or counseling or both or whatever kind of helps you. And I feel like that has tied into, I say this all the time, but it's like, we might have started with money because our money was a disaster, but then it just kept growing and growing and growing and growing. And now it's into our 5th year of this journey. And I'm just like, wow, everything has changed. Everything is amazing. Like it grows into everything. And was that kind of the same for you as well, is working through all of that and spilling over?
Yeah. I mean, one of the most influential psychologists out there, Viktor Frankl, writes about this positive psychology, this concept that no matter what your circumstance, and this is a Holocaust survivor, by the way, he was observing, the differences between the people who did live or did not live in concentration camps if they were not chosen to be gassed to death.
Right.
Sorry for the morbidity of this topic, but the important point is you can choose to reset your emotions right this second. And that power will emanate into every aspect of your life. And when I went to get therapy, when I went to get counseling for a lot of my childhood issues, it was because I was at a point where there was a lot of stress from my job. I had a boss who wasn't the kindest human being on earth. That bled into my marriage. It was a very young marriage. Hubby and I had just gotten married, and it was rocky. We were fighting basically every week. And I was like, this cannot continue. My own health, I mean, I've always been lucky in terms of my immune system, but I just didn't feel like a completely whole person. And upon working through the stuff in therapy, and it took, a little bit over a year, probably a year and a half for me to finally process everything, I noticed that the techniques that my therapist taught me applied to plenty of other things. So there's conflict resolution, there's dealing with stresses, there's dealing with unusual situations. And when, a couple of years down the road, when we started dealing with infertility, which really the diagnosis came middle of last year, and it hit me like a rock. I mean, the moment I found out from my doctor and, she called my phone, I just sat there stunned at work. And I was like, IVF. I never thought that I would have to go through IVF, and I just about cried that day. And I remember thinking at that time, I don't know if I'm going to get through this. I don't know if I'm going to survive the process of IVF. But I figure, well, I don't have a choice. I want a child. IVF is our only option. And I started going down that journey, and I realized so many of the techniques, the gratitude reset that I do every morning, the hashtag I get to, right? Yes. Like I'd start with that. And then the whole, okay, if I got a bad insurance claim kicked back to me, somebody messed up my insurance claim the wrong way, and I just want to yell at the bill adjuster on the phone. I would take a really deep breath after that stressful phone conversation, write down a rant to myself, an email, send it off, and then just take a deep breath. So approaching even difficult situations like that with a much better handle because of the techniques that I learned from getting my mental health treated, it's priceless. And, at the time, therapy was expensive, but having the issues in my life now, it was so worth the investment at that time.
Yeah. And I see it spill over into everything, and I show up better. I show up better online for my audience. I show up better in a podcast. I show up better for my kids, like everybody, and obviously myself first. And it's just amazing how that works. And I love, love, love your get to. That honestly has helped me more than more. I mean, it's awesome. And it's really helped me through my anxiety. And it kind of came like at a perfect time. I don't know how long you had been posting it, but when I noticed it, it was exactly when I needed it. And, I had kind of had this conversation with my counselor about being excited to go on our first camping trip when we got our camper. And I kind of had this like epiphany moment. I'm sitting there, I'm planning the trip in my head, and I'm thinking, oh, I can't wait to get there and to hang out with the kids and my husband and eat and listen to great music and maybe take a nap. And I'm sitting there, I'm thinking, you can do all of this stuff at home. Like, what is so great about this vacation? I'm telling my counselor that. And she was like, yeah, like, stop holding yourself back. You can be happy. You can be content. You can be grateful for just the everyday stuff. It's just in a different location. She's like, you're going to be doing the same things, hanging out with the same people, eating the same food. You can take a nap at home if you really want to, all this stuff. And it was along that time that I started noticing your hashtag I get to, and I was like, I get to do this. And so now every time I'm like, I get overwhelmed, like, you know what? No one made me start this podcast. No one made me write this email. Like, I get to do this. And I think, once you flip all of that, like, I get to pay off my debt. I get to save money. I get to work extra. You can literally apply it to anything. And I think that's just it's just a beautiful thing. And it totally can change your entire life. And I love the way you do that and you put that positive energy into the world, because I feel like more people need that. And I have seriously unfollowed so many people that complain about going to work, that complain about like just the most ridiculous things. You're like, do you realize how blessed you are? Really? It's just like, I have to work extra. Yeah, but what can you do with that extra money? Come on, find the positive of it. But so how have you seen, as you've grown into this journey, not with just your money, but your family aspect and everything, like your resilience has to be amazing to go through everything that you're going through. And with the IVF treatments, it's brutal. It's brutal. So how has that grown your resilience, and what would you share with other people going through any kind of hard time?
I like to believe that nothing is forever except death. Okay, I'm trying not to be so morbid. Okay, but I often tell myself, this too shall pass. I mean, I am Christian, so I quote a lot of things from the Bible, but I say, this too shall pass, or God doesn't give you anything that they don't think that you can handle, things like that. But I think it's also because I've seen the data. And the most successful people in the world have the following qualities if they don't already inherit a crap load of money from mommy and daddy. That's a different deal.
Yes,
that's the most successful. And I talk a lot about entrepreneurs because I like to be an entrepreneur myself. It's you get up. You get knocked down 9 times, get up 10. That's actually the main quality, is that the most successful entrepreneurs are persistent no matter what. And they're able to fight through the inevitable roadblocks and failures that will get thrown your way. So knowing that was actually key motivated me. 2 is when you're under a very stressful situation, and I acknowledge plenty of people who are probably listening to your podcast are not in a good situation. And the tiniest little failure, the tiniest little amount of Murphy can throw all of your plans upside down. I get that. Knowing that, there's also research out there that the greater amount of debt and money pressures you are under, it actually causes your mind to think irrationally. So you have to actually acknowledge that your mind is actually not always necessarily in the right place. But the best way to break out of it is to not be stuck in your mind. So what I often do is I have a prayer circle. I have close girlfriends. And I'll write them, and instead of asking them to pray for me, which I know is what I actually want them to do, I first start out with, what can I pray for you? Because I want other people to share their struggles. I want to hear what's going on in other people's lives. And I realized that when things were really down in my life, like when my hubby was unemployed, or when I go through a really grieving time during IVF, that actually heals me by praying for other people. So if you find yourself in one of these 2 situations, just know, 1, you can fight it out if you hang in there long enough. And 2, if you're just getting stuck in your mind, try to think of other people who could benefit from even just a little bit of your time.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. That's beautifully said. Yes. I I like how you're mentioning kind of the millionaire in the making kind of mindset, the most successful people and the things that they do. And I think about that a lot as kind of like, they say like the average millionaire drives an older vehicle and all this thing. And I'm like, okay, check. I've got that. Like, I feel like I'm making a checklist of like the average millionaire. I tell my husband all the time, the average millionaire reads so many books a year and I got to step it up, and I'm like, I'm checking off that checklist in my mind. And I'm like, the average millionaire would not give up in this situation. and it's true. And it's like, if you have this long distance goal, work backwards and kind of make that checklist. And no, I can't be all the way there, but I can be 1 year closer. And then the next year I can be another year closer and just keep going and be persistent. And, you can't lose if you never quit. And so that's what I keep saying, I'm just going to keep going and we'll just see how it goes and just kind of try to stay motivated. And what, you guys have done some amazing financial things at very, very young ages. And I think like it's a little intimidating to me, but it's inspirational. And so I tried to take the inspiration from it. What has really kept you motivated when at such a young age, there probably were so many people around you doing other things and you might have been feeling like you were missing out and all that kind of stuff? And what has kept you motivated and not kind of made you feel like you were missing out on being young and whatever else?
Yeah. A big dose of mathematical reality, I think, was part of it. So I learned how to basically do financial projections at my workplace very young. So I knew the numbers it took to get to freedom. And I always figured, I'm like, you know what, 5-10 years is not a really long time when you think about the average human, living multiple decades. As for FOMO, look, I did enjoy my life quite some in my 20s. It wasn't that I was a complete monk all of that time. I think the years when I pull back the most were the 5 years before age 31. So really the late 20s was, I'd already experienced some fine dining and some international travel, and I finally pulled back. So I did have some enjoyment. It wasn't without it. But also in the process of pulling back, I also noticed that the circles, the influencers, and the people that I had in my immediate view changed. So I graduated from the top business school in the country, University of Chicago Booth School of Business, where, the average graduate comes out making six figures. And I think the person coming out of my program, the highest in contract signed was $300,000 upon coming out. An incredible amount of money. Also, my cat unfortunately has to join the podcast because he's meowing his head off the last hour. Okay, anyway, back to my classmates. Yes. So it would be normal if you logged into my Facebook and you saw all my business school classmates posts. It would be, lavish vacations, lavish weddings, nice things. But luckily for me, I knew very, very early on that those things didn't actually bring me joy. Now, they can bring temporary enjoyment and temporary happiness, but at the end of the day, the cup empties and you have to refill it over and over and over again. And it just becomes this vicious cycle. Whereas if you can find inner joy, if you can find inner strength, then that cup refills with your power. It doesn't refill with your money. Once I learned that, I used basically psychology and behavioral psychology to reprogram a lot of my habits such that I would still get to the enjoyment component, like quality time with my friends or rest for my body or things like that. But I would get to it in a cheaper way. And I was honest with my friends about what I was doing. The best friends, the closest friends, never took it personally. They're like, hey, Shang, we respect what you're trying to do. We get it. You're trying to save money. We'll do something that is more within budget. And the people that didn't quite get it, or the people that felt maybe personally judged, by what I did. Some of those relationships fell away. Sometimes years down the road, I'll get a Instagram message saying, "Hey, we're just realizing now how cool it is to live a more minimalist, simple life." But if you can find inner strength and confidence in who you are, then it really does not matter what anyone else thinks of me. And I also don't feel FOMO because I have quality friends who will hang out no matter what, who come over for a cup of free tea and a cuddle with my cat. So yeah, it worked out.
Exactly. And I have found, honestly, we would go out, we would spend all the money and do all the things. And eventually that life caught up with us. And my husband took longer to come around to it, of course, but we have found more, that we actually kind of have more fun at home because you have dinner at home. You don't feel rushed. You don't, if, I don't know, you can actually have a conversation. You can hear each other, and, you can hang out with the cats or whatever, and you can be in your comfortable clothes. And sometimes that quality is so much better. And it's like, at first you think, oh, I'm never going to have any fun again, but there's still so much fun to have. And it's going to be so different. It's going to be higher quality, I think. And I think that's what a lot of people, that fear kind of holds them back. And plus, I think the fear of being so different and kind of standing out in the crowd, people don't like that at all. And I think that that's really awesome, especially, I don't have personal, like, fancy friends that went to a business school and came out making $300,000. And I still felt that way. So I can imagine how that must have been so hard. But, I think being brave enough to go first, just to and then years later have some of those same people message you on Instagram and like, hey, so I just found out about this thing. Is this what you were talking about all along? I love the good message of someone, taking a picture of like a Dave Ramsey book or one of the books and being like, guess what? This is one of the books that you read. Like, yeah, I told you that like 4 years ago. Where have you been? I think just being brave enough to go first and just, I don't really care what anybody else thinks. I'm happy, and I know that my long-term goals, future me is going to be super glad. Present me is content, and hey, we're good. We're good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It takes too much energy to try to live your life for someone else.
True.
It's way too much. Just live it for yourself, to find it at however way you like. And it's freeing. Like I said, the majority of Americans are not saving and investing enough for their retirement today. So yeah, if you guys are doing the work and saving and investing to retire, you're the minority and you're going to stick out, but it's for a good reason. The math doesn't lie. If you don't save and invest, you're not going to have the most comfortable of retirement. So
it's true. It's true. So I know that you, obviously, I speak to more women. That's just kind of how it happened. That's not how I intended it to be in the first place. So why do you think that it's so important, especially for women, to know about finances, to know about investing, and kind of, I feel like women have a little more of a fear, maybe. We just don't feel like we're as qualified, I guess, for some reason. Why do you think that it's so important for women to be educated on this?
Well, women control 80% of consumer purchases in the United States. We actually run the economy, even though we don't really know it. And on average, women live 5 years longer than male counterparts. So absolutely, we need money, because money translates into power, power translates into influence, influence into change. So more importantly than ever, if you are a female who wants to change the world, you got to get your grasp on money. So that's the high level view. The historical context is, for decades, maybe even hundreds of years, financial services, which are typically sold by financial institutions like big banks and brokerage firms have intentionally been sold as complicated products that only men should really care about because somehow they determined years ago that men control the money in the household, which we women know is not necessarily the truth.
It's true.
And so our culture has been inundated with this marketing for years and years and years. And when you have that message told to you very young that it's the men who control the money, it's the men who know how to invest, then it's a false idea that we've told ourselves. I was lucky that when I was young, I learned that I happened to be very good at math, that I would be better than 99% of my peers at math. So when I learned that finance is just some math, I was like, oh, I'm not afraid of math. So luckily for me, there's that. And also the good news is the math involved in personal finance, if you've gotten your high school diploma, you're fully equipped to do the majority of math that's required. So that's the encouragement. Then I would say is we need someone to tell us that actually this is not scary, that you can totally do this. And I love Sally Krawcheck, the founder of Ellevest, which is a robo-advisor and service geared more towards women. She wants women to invest because we can absolutely do this. In fact, in some studies, it has been shown that in long-term investing, because women are a little bit more even-keeled in our nature, actually turn out to be better long-term investors than men are.
That's really interesting. Yeah. Yeah. I've always been the one who has done the budget and kind of gone first with all of that. And it just kind of came naturally. Like you said, like I've just kind of always been good at math. I love kind of the puzzle of figuring out a good budget and putting together a good spreadsheet. And it's fun to me. And that's kind of always been me. And my husband's kind of always hated that. And that's just naturally the roles that we fell into. He was like, you like it, you do it. That's good. Okay, moving on. And I was very much raised, I'm the oldest of 3 girls. And so with having 3 daughters, my dad was very passionate about, and my mom as well, but my dad kind of pushed us a little more into like, get an education, know what you're doing. You will never be at the mercy of a man. You will want a husband, not need a husband. And I've told my husband that over and over again. I'm like, hey, we're partners. I know what I'm doing, and it just that power, like just knowing that you can do it, that confidence, and I wish that more women would get educated. I think more women are getting educated about their money and not being afraid to get their hands on their budget and, figure it all out. And it's just like, we're not afraid to spend it the majority of the time. We love to spend it. So we have to budget it as well.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
It's just, and I love how you speak to that as well. And I think that is a really big trend in the debt-free community of just, hey girls, let's get this together. Let's cheer each other on. And I love that positive reinforcement that the debt-free community has.
We work way too hard for our money. And, if you work, at least a 40-hour week, you might as well spend 1 to 2 hours a week figuring out how to keep it and grow it.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not something that's really that difficult. I mean, it can be done. There are books to be read. There are people who can help you and all of that. Oh my goodness. I feel like we could talk forever. And that's why, I'm glad that we came up with a little bit of an outline of what we wanted to talk about, because I would keep you on here forever and we would just talk and talk and talk. But I'm going to link to your Instagram and your blog and everything in the show notes. So if there is anyone who is not following you, definitely click over and give her a follow and just, be inspired with the I get to, like I am every single day. So it's so awesome. You're so inspiring. And I thank you so much for your time and just sharing your wisdom and your positivity. And you're definitely a blessing to the debt-free community. And I'm very thankful that you're a part of it.
Oh, well, thank you so much also for your gift to the community in,
Thank you.
this podcast and your blog and your gift as a mother to 3 children. I think that should be celebrated every day.
Thank you. Thank you. I will tell my kids.
You should be grateful for your mom.
Celebrate your mom. Yes. Yes. Well, thank you so much again, you guys. Everything that we mentioned during this interview, I'll link to in the show notes. And as always, you guys, please share this interview. You never know who this message can help. Leave us a review. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe. That's what helps the podcast grow. And I will talk to you guys next week. Bye, guys.